The next thing is create, right? Notice we don't need a details. I mean, really, we have all the information on the index view that we could require, so there's no need for details. But in the create process then, remember we talked about essentially two things, okay? We're going to prepare the actual employee, but at the same time we want to assign what roles in the identity system, security system that the employee will have as well. So we're going to start off generating a new employee admin view model object, right? And this is similar to the kind of code we've done before, populate assigned role data whenever we have a situation here with a many-to-many, right? Where employee could be in many roles and so on. Okay, we'll get down to the details of how we write that in a few minutes. And then we return view with this brand new employee admin object, right? So that's what our view will be based on. Then we'll come back in and we'll use our normal whitelist here that will only allow to protect against overposting first name, last name, phone, first date, prescriber, and email, right? So those are the properties that the admin user will set up. But notice we can actually directly create an employee, right, with this. And we'll also get the selected roles, okay, from our many-to-many. So they'll check off all the roles that this user should be in, right? So in our try-catch, we, of course, check for a valid model state that required information is provided. We add the employee and save changes, right? And then we're going to also create, in parallel to this process, the record in the identity system, the identity user, right? So we'll insert an identity user into the other database, the identity system, okay? The two things we need are the email and the selected roles. Now, again, we'll look at the details of how we do that in code coming up, right? Now, I have this commented out for now, but possibly what we might consider doing is sending that email invitation to the user saying, you've been added to this system, click this link to create a password by using the forgot password functionality of the system, right? So I've been commented out for now because we don't want to bother sending the emails and so on at this point in time. And that's it. If all goes good, we go back to the index itself. Now, of course, we need a catch block here for a DB update exception. The main thing here is our unique constraint on the email address, right? We can't have a duplicate email address. We know the reasons why, right? Okay. Now, if we get past all this and we haven't redirected back to the index, it means that there was a problem. Okay, either there was a validation error or one thing or another, so we need to redisplay. Well, to do that, okay, we actually have an employee, so we'll once more create an employee admin view model object, copying the data over, okay, using our mapping generator helped with that code, into the view model object, okay, from the actual employee that was posted to this action, right? And again, the selected roles, we'll go in and we'll add each one to the user roles contained within our employee admin view model object, populating the assigned role data, getting our checkboxes ready to show, and then we return view. So that's so we can redisplay in case they have to fix something. They left out the last name or who knows, whatever, right? Some validation error is going on. Okay, so let's look at the actual view to go along with that as well. So I can just come up here, I can right click either of the creates, add view. And I'm going to again do it empty because I could do it based on as a create based on the actual employee, but then I have to take code out and whatnot. I encourage you to try that and just compare, right, to see what changes you'd actually have to make in the code. But it'll be simpler and during the demo if I just go ahead and do the create this way. Okay, failed to build. I must have a build there. There you go. See? Even in a demo, things can go wrong sometimes. Let's just see if this is a quick and easy one to fix. Okay, there we go. See? Look at that. One too many curly braces. That's probably all it was. I'll just do another build just to make sure, but it looks like I've taken care of it. And looks like we're okay. All right, good. So one more time. come back up to either of the creates, it doesn't matter which one, right click and add view. Okay, nice empty create view, but we'll put our code in place here. So it's a typical one. It could have, as I said, been based on the employee object, right? But we're working with an actual employee admin view model object as the model for the view, showing our view heading. And then down here we have our inputs for first name, last name, phone. Okay, notice our active is hidden, right? Because we're just creating here. So there's no point in trying to make this person inactive. The default value of true is exactly what we would want. The first aid, now here it is a select, and we know we've done this before in terms of getting the items for the drop-down list. We just use the get enum select list for first aid to get all the items that we want, right? Okay, we have our prescriber checkbox. We have the email address, which of course will be checked for uniqueness. And then here's our normal checkboxes, as we've done many times before, for our actual roles, right? Using the same code that we had in place from our earlier work with checkboxes for roles. And so we can just check off which ones we want for whatever roles the user is in, right? And that's it. Submit back, and away we go. So nothing special or really unusual that we haven't done before here. We're making progress. Let's come back to the controller. The next one to look at here is the edit process, right? So edit, again, we just get the ID in terms of the get. We make sure we actually have a value. We go and we get it, building a admin view model object for the employee in the usual way, right? Then once we have the object, then we can go and use our user manager to find out the roles and populate the user roles property, that list of strings of the names of all the roles the user is currently in. Prepare our checkboxes here with populate assigned role data and display the view. Then we come back in and we post. Again, we use try update model, of course, right? So we just have the ID. Active is something separate that we need to deal with, and then our string of selected roles, right? So we'll go and we get our employee to update from the actual employees entity itself, just identified by first or default, okay? And then what we do, this is kind of important. We're going to note, right? I want to know what the current value coming in from the page is for both the active status and the email, right? Because we're setting it up so that it is possible for the admin to change the email address. Now, we said before that we've got to make sure that the value matches across both systems, the identity system and our own production table here, the employee table. But, you know, if there was a need to change it, we're planning ahead and making it possible to do that. You'll see in the logic later on that if there is a change in the email, then we're going to handle that by dropping the actual identity user, recreating a new one with the new email address, and setting all the roles according to the options that the administrator has set, right? So that's why we need to keep track of the email to check for a change. So we're going to monitor for a change in the active status or for the email address. Okay, then we try update model, our employee to update with the various attributes that we need to be able to change here, including the active status, right? Then we call save changes, make sure that's okay, right? If it is, then we carry on. And now we're going to do our additional checks. So we make sure that the active property, right, check for changes in the active state. So if active for employee to update is false, but the choice that came in from the view, right, that we saved up here is set to true, then, okay, they have deactivated a user. That's part of the editing process. So, I mean, it's fine. We've already saved that change to the actual employee, but we know that we need to do something else. We need to delete the identity user, right? And that takes out the ability for that user to log in. Okay. Now, another case. So if the employee to update is active, is true, and the active status was false, so they have reactivated. The admin said, okay, yeah, this user wasn't active, but now I've made them active again, right? Then we have to create or insert an identity user. Again, we'll get to these methods further down in the controller in just a moment or two, right? For this one, we have to pass the email and we have to pass the string of all the different roles the user should be added into in the identity system itself. Else if, right? So if the employee to update is active and the status was set to true, then there's no change to the active status, but we need to check the email. If they change the email, we need to delete the old identity user, the old walk-in, and create a new one as well. So it's a second thing. We don't need to worry about checking the email if they've already changed active either one way or the other. But if the active hasn't changed, then it makes sense we need to check if the email has changed. So if they don't match, then we need to insert the new login, okay, insert the new identity user, and away we go. Otherwise, and at the same time, we need to delete the old one. So we'll create the new one and delete the old one, right? And that will make sure that they can now log in with the new revised email address. The else branch here, they're still active, no change to email, right? So we'll just update the user roles, okay? And then that way we can make sure that all the roles, because that might have changed, right? They might have changed the selections of what the user has got in terms of their roles. And that's it. And we redirect back to the index. If all goes well, we can check for concurrency, but we don't actually have a row version here, so that's not really a problem. Check for the unique constraint on the email address, because even if they've changed it or not, we don't want to allow duplicate or whatever. Now, of course, we come down here because something went wrong and we have to redisplay. So once more, we populate the employee admin view model, okay, from our current employee admin view model that we're working with, right? Sorry, with the current email to update. That's what I meant to say, right? With all the values there that we're trying to save to the database, populate the user roles, that collection of strings, and then get the checkboxes ready and redisplay the view so they can fix whatever the problem was. Okay, all right, so notice there's no delete, okay? Because we probably don't want to delete employees that have been added to the system. We'll just make them inactive. That way all the audit history and the history of any of the work that they've done in the system will still be there. So if they created records, updated records, we'll still know about it, right? Okay, if you ever get to the stage where you need to archive data, well, that'll be something else that we'll get into another time, in a different running moment, probably. All right, so here's all our little helper tasks, all these private ones. Populate assigned role data. Well, this is no mystery. This is just getting checkboxes ready in the normal way for the most part, right? So we're just getting our role view model objects ready and adding them to the view bag here so that we can use that as we build our checkboxes on the screen. Okay, update user roles, right? Here's where we're given our list, our string array of roles, okay, and of course the email address, right? So we can go and get the actual user from the identity system by using our user manager. As long as we actually get the user, then what we can do is we can get their current roles, right? The current roles the user is in, okay? And then if the selected roles is null, in other words, if the admin user has not selected any roles for the user to be in, or maybe even unselected ones that they were in, right? Then there are no roles selected. We'll just remove any that are currently there. And we already have that here in this user role, so we'll just loop through them and we call our user manager to remove them from that role. And that takes care of that. Now, if selected roles isn't null, then we have to worry about, okay, we have to compare, right? So we need to go through and do the comparisons. Now, we've done this kind of thing before. Because of working asynchronously, we're best to actually go and get all the roles, because we want to go through all the roles in the system. So we'll do that first, and then we'll can do a for each loop through all the roles. And then we check if the selected roles contains the name of the role. And if the user doesn't, then we add it, okay? Else, if the user roles contains the name of the role, but it no longer should, then we remove it from the role. Okay, we remove from role async, and away we go. And that will update all the roles, so the roles in the identity user match what the admin user has selected. Insert identity user. So this is if they're being reactivated or created the first time. Okay, we pass the email and the selected roles, right? So we just go and we make sure that we're going to create the identity user, right? So as long as it's null, so they don't exist already, then we'll new up a new identity user. Okay, notice this is similar to the code we had in our application C data. We set the email, we set the username, email confirm true. Since we're creating it, we'll set it that way. And then create our random password. So I'm using our make password generate method to get our 8-character password. The default is 8, so I don't have to specify that, right? Okay, so we call create, and that's our result. If we succeeded, then we'll call with our user manager to add the roles that we passed in. Else, okay, here's where we're going to show a message. Login account for was already in the system, right? Because we tried to actually add it, but it was there already. Delete identity user. So we pass in the email, and all we really have to do is go into the context, do a link query here, users, where the email matches. That's our user to delete. And we just call remove on that record in the identity context and save changes. And that's it. That will remove the user. Now it's pretty straightforward. Okay. Invite user to reset password. So here's one we're going to actually send the email. So we're just building up a message. Hello, employee. Please navigate to, right, the app, because you actually have to update this with the proper URI and so on, right, to create a new password for the account, right? And we just send that off. So that's just when we're ready to actually send the email. And that's it. That's all the functionality in here. So in terms of views, we have to still do a bit of work there. Details or delete, the only view I'm missing is edit. So if I come here, right click either one of the edit actions, I can just say add view. Now this time, just to show you what it looks like, I'm actually going to create a view with a model, okay? So I'll do it as a edit view, right? But the model class, then I'm going to select employee. Now I could technically actually use like the employee admin view model, right? And it would scaffold pretty much the same code. Trouble with using a view model is it will automatically go and create a DB set in my DB context for the view model, and I don't want that to happen. So that's why I'm just going to stick with employee for this demonstration here as well, right? Okay, I'll just click add. Okay, so here's my view as it was scaffolded. Now, I could work with this and just make the changes I need. I don't have the patience to do that in the demo, though, but I'll let you go through and compare the code that I'm supplying with what's generated automatically. You can see there isn't a huge amount of change. Of course, I'm actually going to base it on the employee admin view model for more accuracy. Here's my view heading is normal because we're using our cognitive controller, right? So one thing I'll point out, of course, the only hidden input now is just the ID. We have inputs for first name, last name, phone number in the normal way. First aid, of course, our select is just our enum. We get our ASP items from our get enum select list from the enumeration itself. We have our checkbox for the prescriber. If not, they can write prescriptions. Email, now I have a note here I've added. Change the email, reset the password for the new login. The user will need to use forgot password to create a password and so on and so forth, right? Okay, again, around the checkbox for active, just a warning here, right? So if they're active, then I warn them that if I make them inactive, then they won't be able to log in, et cetera, et cetera. If it is false, right, then I'm warning that if you make the user active, let them know to use forgot password to set a new password, et cetera, right? Normal arrangement for checkboxes, so we can check off all the roles. Of course, this is dynamic, so if we did add new roles to the system, it will automatically find them and add new checkboxes for that. Other than that, we're using our back to list down here, so there's nothing terribly new. It's just a matter of getting everything we actually want in place inside the view. Okay, now before I run, I'm going to do one thing. I want to experiment and demonstrate creating a new user or making them active and so on and so forth. So there's one line of code here we talked about earlier in this private method here, insert identity user. Right now we set it up so that we're generating a nice new password, okay, with our make password random number generator, basically, right? Well, trouble is, I can't find out what that is, and I don't want to go to the bother at the moment of actually having to worry about going through and using forgot password and getting emails and so on. So I'm going to actually make up a password here. Familiar? Yeah. This way I can know while I'm experimenting what the password is. I'm just going to set a breakpoint there because I think it's fun to see the kind of passwords we're actually going to generate here as we go along. Okay. All right. I think we're ready. We're going to give it a try. Okay. So I will log in as admin. And then I should be able to come down here to maintain employees. So here are my 3 employees, right? So if I come into Betty here, we can edit. Okay, Betty, now maybe Betty got married. Now technically we should leave it to the user to be able to make this, but I just wanted to show doing a change, right? So 905, there we go. Okay, so here's something only the admin should be able to change. Okay, she took the course, now she's certified for level 1 first aid training, and she completed her requirements to become, so she can actually subscribe, right? So that's good. We aren't going to change her role here at all, though, so I'll just click Save, and we can see that all those changes have taken effect. All right. Oh, guess what? She just quit, right? So we don't want to lose all the history of everything that she's done in the system, right? So I can come in here and I can make her inactive, okay? So that's all the change I'll make. So I'll click Save, and there we go. So I see that she is no longer active. And if I were to try and log in for Betty Flintstone, I would be told, well, let's do it. Betty was just user, right? Same password, invalid login attempt. So no, Betty cannot log in, right, anymore. Betty is gone. Okay. All right, now, if I come in here, guess what? She just came back and said, please, can I have my job back? Okay, we're going to make her active once again. So I'll click Save. And notice we hit our breakpoint here because as part of the logic, we're inserting the identity user. Okay, the email user@outlook.com. No roles, but that's okay. Maybe I should have added a role, but anyway, that's okay. So we're down here. We're going to actually generate a password, right? I just want to show you what it looks like. So that's the capital U, small r, S, 6, an underscore, and a bunch of other characters randomly generated, right? Okay. Fortunately, I'm going to replace that with one that I know so that I will be able to actually test this out. So there we go. All right. So now we should have created the user. If I log out now, I can log in as user. And this is the password that would have been there. So now Betty is in, right? Now, in the next part of our learning moment, 7.2, we'll actually add the user interface so the user can come in here and maintain some of their own information, right? We aren't set up for that just yet. That'll be in the next part. So it'll get more interesting because right now I only see doctors because she's not in any roles, right? So very limited functionality available to her at the moment. Quick demo of adding a new user just to show you that that works as well. Come in here. So if we're creating a brand new user, no first aid training, I can prescribe. Now, of course, I have to have an email. So I'm going to use my colleague's email. And I'm going to make myself an admin too. Actually, I'll give myself both. There we go. So I'll just click create. Now, of course, we're stopping here, but we're going to replace that password. Let's just see. I'm curious what it created this time. There we go. There's the password that it created, but that'll be replaced. So now I should be able to log out and log in as D. Stovall at Niagara College. And I think that might have the right password. Yes, it did. There we go. So I'm in. Hello to me. And I'm an admin, so I can come in here. There we go. So we've seen the full functionality we have from the admin point of view. In 7.2, the next part of our learning moment, we'll get all the functionality in place so the user can maintain the information they're allowed to access all on their own. So it's not all falling on the shoulders of the admin to do all the work. Poor admin.